Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Cherie Warwick, your election chair, and I am here to talk with you in this video about the ballot itself. So what are we voting on exactly? And I'll give you a little bit of commentary, but as you know, I am not here to tell you what to do. This is a vote, but I will give you a little bit of perspective. So here goes, and I'm going to share the screen here. Okay, so a couple of things to think about. Outside of our president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer that we are voting on, there are some ballot initiatives we're voting on as well. And our decisions will most likely go into the bylaws only if there is some sort of a legal or issue that has to be changed. Will this not occur? Otherwise, we expect that these will go into the bylaws for the organization. So the first thing that we have to look at is, and I guess let me give you a better view of this. We'll do it as a slideshow here. The first thing that we have to look at are term limits. So would you like the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer to be elected for one year or 2 years? 1 year or 2 years. And I guess I shouldn't have called it term limits per se, but it's more so what's the timetable of the term. So some organizations will choose to have their officers for 2 years because the first year, at least the first 6 months, you're kind of getting your footing together and you're trying to get things rolling, and then it takes about 12 to 18 months for you to really get an agenda passed. So that's why you'll see 2 years sometimes. Other people may prefer 1 year because you always have the ability to re-elect somebody to a specific position, and it helps in terms of obviously if we have someone who for ethical reasons is not working out, then we can remove that person. So I don't want you to think that a person would be stuck in these positions for ethical reasons, but if the person is not working out for whatever reason, then so now I'm starting to think off the top of my head here. If someone is not working out and we discover it in the first few months, then we would have to figure out, and I think it would be really not we, I think it would be the officers. The other officers would have to figure out a game plan. And maybe that's something that can be discussed during the election cycle in terms of what people think, and corresponding with or talking with the candidates and seeing what they think in regards to that, because I don't have an answer for that, just being very honest. Next ballot question is quorum. So quorum is a fancy term for, I'll give you an example. If we move forward with the Jarvis ICO and we have a deal on the table, quorum is a fancy term for how many people have to vote on it, just in total. How many people have to vote on it for us to consider that vote valid? So let's say that, I'll give you some real examples. We have 1,000 people in the group. Quorum says we have to have 40% or 400 people voting in order for us to cut a check or agree to not cut a check. Or 60% of quorum means that out of the 1,000 people, 600 people have to come to the polls and vote. So it really is about how many people need to vote. And that's not saying 400 people need to vote yes. That's just 400 people need to vote, period. How many people need to vote in order for us to do a deal, or if there's a major issue, us to change the bylaws or something like that. So that's what quorum is. So why the 40% versus the 60%? Well, typically in an investment club, the number is 67%. However, I recently was going to join a virtual investment club that had 40% as their quorum. And the reason for that is because we have so many people and there's just, everyone's on different time schedules, even though our elections will always have a 24-hour cycle. We need to make sure that we need to make sure that there's enough people voting so that there is a consensus. So again, I got the 40% from another group that I was considered joining. 60% is like the lowest that I've seen in just the regular investment clubs that I've seen. I'm not telling you which way to vote. I'm just giving you some of the facts and some of the history as to where I got these numbers from. Monthly investment. So there was a great question that came in regards to the monthly investment, and it is on the ballot. So a couple of things to know about monthly investment. One of the questions that came was in regards to, I'm going to read this here. This is from Tawana Rivers. Question 37 covers the other ballot items we will be voting on. This is what Tawana says. Does the proposed monthly payments directly get applied 100% into an account or ledger item associated with each member's name? The answer to that is yes. Meaning when the next deal is identified, this is the next deal outside of the Jarvis ICO if we choose to do it, it will show we've already paid X amount of dollars that will be 100% applied to our direct investment in the next ICO deal. The answer to that is yes, yes. So with this monthly investment, whether you choose $250, $300, $350, that means that that is not for any kind of operational expenses. That's money that we have on hold so that when the next ICO deal comes through, we'll have some cash in the bank. And instead of always coming to you saying, hey, can we get $2,000 for this deal? You can just kind of accumulate it slowly. That's what we are saying. So that question was from Tawana, and that was a very good question, and I knew I would be answering it in this video. So that is our answer to that. Next question, when should we accept new members? 3 months after the Jarvis ICO launch or 6 months after the Jarvis ICO launch? I think we're going to change this question. Because we cannot assume that there will be a DUIC Jarvis ICO launch. And I don't mean that I'm telling you that there is not going to be. I'm saying that there will be a vote on it. So I'm going to change this question to when should we accept new members? And it will be probably something like 3 months after we launch or 6 months after we launch. But I'm also willing to accept some feedback on that as well. So today is January 31st. If you give me feedback by, let me look at my calendar here, you give me feedback by February 3rd on this question. And because we have a lot of DU 2000 members that want to come in. So give me some feedback on this question and we're able to tweak this question a little bit for the ballot. So email me election@digitalundergroundinvestmentclub.com. Okay. I'm sorry. Go back here. So the question of accepting new members comes for a couple of reasons. Number one is we have a lot of new members and some of them are going to be asking things like, how do I set up a Coinbase account and items that we have already overcome. And we have so much business to do within this group that I'm concerned, I'll say that I'm concerned about us having to stop to answer some of those questions, okay? The second is with the Jarvis ICO launch, it's about commingling as well. So if we decide to do the Jarvis ICO launch, the DU 1000 will have special terms that the DU 2000 doesn't have. And then it's my understanding that Charles said certain things to the DU 2000 in terms of paying an annual fee and receiving certain coins based on the annual fee versus the monthly fee. I have to admit, I don't know. I didn't watch the video. So we need to think about that as well and some of the logistics that are going to go into that. But overall, we need to figure out how we're going to accept new members, because I'm starting to get questions about that as well. Not that that is, on you. There's no pressure on you, but we do need to have some sort of a time frame that would be great to give our DU 2000 members. Okay, next question. Should new members be forced to join the Black Business School's Digital Underground program, and you get a choice of yes or no? The reason for this question is, again, number one, people are going to hear about the investment club, but they are not going to have the Crypto 101 background necessarily. So one of the things we have to consider is, do we require new members to join the official Digital Underground program so that, number one, they can get the education, and number two, this organization was spawned out of Dr. Boyce and Boyce Watkins Enterprises. So I'm not saying yes or no. It's a ballot question. Tawana Rivers asked another great question about this. She says, what would be the rationale for this if the two entities are separate as you clearly define within the election guide? It's a great question. The rationale for this is, and I'm not saying yes or no, this is a ballot question. The rationale is twofold. Number one, the Digital Underground program already has the Crypto 101 platform and the education and all of that education, and it would enable us to focus on what we're focusing on, which is choosing the right ICOs and not focusing on how to set up a Coinbase account. Number two, it's also a little bit of respect for Dr. Boyce as well. We're going to attract a lot of members. And yes, we are separate in a separate entity, but we're also connected as well. Let's be realistic about it. So again, ballot question. I personally, yes, I have an opinion, but whatever the electorate decide, whatever you decide individually, you got to vote. And whatever the vote is what it's going to be. Next question. If an existing DUIC member decides to leave the Black Business School DU program, can they continue to be part of the Digital Underground Investment Club? Again, you have a choice. It's a simple ballot question. You can decide whether or not, if you leave the Black Business School program, can you still continue to be part of the ICOs that we're going to be a part of? So those are the ballot questions. And that is it for me. Tawana did ask some good questions here, so I want to make sure that I got them all. She asked here about new members will be allowed at some point. Do you have an idea on the DUIC ongoing membership criteria? I do not. That is part of number one. Do they have to belong to the Digital Underground, which is a ballot choice? There are also some additional new member. So one of the things we're going to have is a new member and member acquisition group. And what I'm imagining from that committee is that they will come up with some of the other criteria as well. So if you are thinking that that is something, and I'm not picking on you, Tawana, I'm just saying just in general to everybody who's watching this, if you're thinking that that's something important to you, Two things I would suggest. Number one is think about what you would like to see in that and finding candidates that align with that, especially the VP, who's going to be in charge of all the committees. And number two, there will be a new member committee that's created, and maybe joining that committee so that that you are able to have much more of an input in regards to that. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for listening. And I am at election@digitalundergroundinvestmentclub.com. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.